I am so excited to start crafting for the holiday season. I would love for you to join me as we start to create some beautiful Christmas ornaments that are nature inspired. Let's get crafting. For this project, you're going to need a round wood slice with a hole in it. I have this one that actually looks like an actual Christmas ornament. Had it in my stash for a very long time. I removed the ribbon and now I'm going to be giving it 2 coats of this off-white craft paint. This is just a craft paint that I picked up from my local dollar store. It's called cream color, but I find that it is more like an off-white. So I'm going to allow it to dry in between both coats. I'm also going to paint it on the back side. You can see I have the top blank. I'm going to be painting that a different color. But first, I'm diving into my stash of pressed leaves and pressed flowers. Now, these are some pressed leaves and flowers that I pressed over the summer. I'm going to have a video on how you can do that, linked down below. You can still gather some of that stuff right now if you are viewing this video in October. Now here I've got my selection of some flowers, and I am not very good at storing these. This is just an old jewelry box that I had upcycled. I wanted to store all my flowers, pressed flowers and leaves in these drawers. But you can just store them in layers of parchment paper, in a tote or whatever. I've just gathered up a selection and now I'm going to start to lay them out on my ornament. I'm not going to glue anything down just yet. I wanted to figure out my placement first. You can see also I'm allowing some of my leaves and flowers to overhang over on the edge of the ornament as well. And I'm also trying to make sure that I am balancing the color out all over. But again, you get creative. Have fun with this. It really depends on the type of flowers and leaves that you have. So here I have taken a picture of my placement, and then I pulled everything off kind of roughly in the placement that I had on the ornament. I like to take a picture of it because then I have an idea of what I already had created. So now I'm going to be using some matte decoupage. I'm giving a layer of the glue all over the ornament, and then I'm going to start to place all my pressed leaves into the glue. You do want to be somewhat generous with the glue, but you don't want to add so much that it gets really, really messy and goopy, because that will end up showing in your end result. This particular flower was a pressed geranium and there was some layers to it. So I just adjusted accordingly, removed some of the top layers because the glue wasn't going to get up underneath the layers that I had, and I just moved the petals around a bit. So I have some of my leaves and flowers in place. So I'm going in over those with another coat of the decoupage glue. Now I know I have a lot of people ask me, what is the difference between decoupage glue and Mod Podge? Well, Mod Podge is just a brand name of decoupage glue. So I have used all kinds of different brands. Deco Art is a really good one. Artist Mine, and then this is Craftsmart. Just tried some different brands out. You don't have to stick with Mod Podge. I find here where I live, Mod Podge remains quite tacky. So every once in a while, you may need to go back in and add a bit more decoupage glue to the wood slice before putting your flowers down. If you need to do that, go ahead. I've allowed it to dry well once I added a coat. And then over top of everything. And now I'm going to go in and trim off any of those extra bits that are overhanging. I've decided to go over the entire piece one more time with a layer of my decoupage glue. That will help cover up any spots that I may have missed, and will also cover up the edges that we had trimmed off. Once you've got a nice coat on, you're going to allow it to dry well. Now, I do want you to keep in mind this is a natural element that we're using, so it could fade in color over time. So if that bothers you, you can give it a spray of some UV resistant spray. So I wasn't sure what color of paint I was going to use for the top of this ornament at first, but once I thought about it, I decided to use this spun gold color. It is a really nice kind of an antique gold. I'm going to give the topper 2 coats, and I'm allowing it to dry well in between each coat. Don't forget to do the edges. Now, as far as the back side of my ornament, I decided to leave mine blank, but you could put a sentiment on the back or give a layer of your florals as well. But I'm going to leave mine blank for now. Everything is all nice and dry. I'm using just some red twine for my hanger. I like to fold it in half, create a loop, pull the loop through the hole, and take my tails and pull those tails through the loop, pulling it tight, and then I'm going to tie the 2 tails together to create a knot at the top. It is a great way to create a nice, beautiful hanger. I'm going to just trim off any of the excess. You can tie some knots on the end if you need to, if they're fraying, but I can't believe how beautiful this turned out. I am so happy. I'm definitely going to be making some for gifts. I love to use pine cones in my decor in the winter time, so I had been wanting to try this out for a while. You can see I've got a couple pine cones here. I'm removing the stem just off of one of them for now. And I'm going to use an awl. This is just my homemade awl that I have, but you want to poke a hole in the top. You can also use a drill if you'd like. But I find that this awl works just fine for this purpose, as I needed to add an eye hook for my hanger. So you want to do this first. This is really important. You could add a touch of wood glue to help hold it in place as well. Next, you're going to need some jute string or yarn or any type of string that you would like. You can see that my cone is a little lopsided on the top, so I'm creating a knot in my jute twine. And that will help to fill in that space next to the eye hook to help to balance it out a bit. But there is going to be another step that I will need to do as well before I'm able to create that really nice balanced look. So you may be wondering, what am I doing here? Well, I wanted to try and create an acorn. I have seen acorns being made out of pine cones before, but I'm doing the reverse of what you will usually see. So you can see I'm using some hot glue, adding a little bit, wrapping my jute twine around the eye hook. So typically what I have seen is that people will use the pine cone I can't remember what they're called. You know, like the little petals or whatever of the pine cone. Anyways, people will usually use those as the top of the acorn and then use fabric on the bottom, or use twine on the bottom. But I decided I wanted to reverse that technique. So right here you can see I'm trying to balance it out. So I had started to wrap my twine around. Now I brought my twine down just a little bit, and you can see that there is a gap. I will be going back in and filling that gap in with some more twine. But it was really starting to get even more lopsided, so I thought this would be the best way, and it actually worked really well. So now I just carried on, continued to wrap my jute twine around the top, and I'm going to just finish it off here, gluing that, adding a touch more glue if needed. And now I'm going to go in and fill in that gap. And like I said, it actually worked really well. So I'm adding some hot glue, pressing just a bit of that jute twine into the hot glue, and then I'm going to trim it off, pressing the ends into that little gap, just like you see me doing here, trimming off any bits that need to be trimmed off. Just being careful not to add too much glue that'll end up getting really heavy, but you can see how it's filled in really nicely. And now all I have to do is add my jute twine for my hanger. And I've got a really simple little Christmas ornament. You could add some glitter to this if you'd like. Like I said, you could use different colored strings and twines. That would be really pretty. You can even do bigger pine cones. But I wanted to just use these little ones just to create a cute little acorn look. I have this wood tree and I trimmed off the star. You can see on the right here, there was a star. I did not want that star. I just wanted just the tree. Now I'm going to go in and add a coat of this green paint. You can use any green paint that you'd like. I'm going to give the entire tree a coat. I'm only needing one coat. I just needed to get rid of that raw wood color. I'm going to be painting both the front and the back side, and you will want to allow it to dry well. Here it is, all coated. You can see it's a quite messy paint job. I'm going to be using this preserved moss. You can see it's in lots of little bits. I think you can get this from Dollar Tree. I know I've seen it at a lot of other craft stores, so you'll just have to look around. You just want to make sure that it is not really clumpy. Although you could do this with the clumpy moss as well, but I like the look of this loose moss. I'm using tacky glue and I'm spreading it all over the tree. You can see I'm being quite generous with the glue as well. I actually should have added more glue than what you see here. You do need quite a bit. So I'm being careful to cover the entire tree with the glue, except I will go back in and remove the glue off of the tree trunk, because I ended up deciding to do something a little bit different there, and I'll show you that in a bit. You can see now I'm taking my moss and I'm pressing it into the glue. Now you know why we need quite a bit of that glue. You want to make sure that this moss is going to stick to that glue. You're using quite a bit of that moss. You can see it's quite messy. Here I'm going in and removing that glue off of the tree trunk, because this is when I decided that I wanted to do something different there. So I'm turning it upside down, pressing that down to make sure that moss is really connecting to that glue. Now I'm allowing to set a bit, going in and adding a little bit more if needed. And I will be going back in again to add some more, but I'll show you that here in a moment. So I did the same thing on the back side. Now I'm going to remove the excess once it's all nice and dry. And then you're going to be going in and just giving it a haircut. You want to bring back the shape of your tree. Of course, it's going to depend on the type of wood cut ornament that you have. That'll depend on the tree shape that you have. But I had quite a bit of detail along the edge, so I made sure that I took my scissors and trimmed it off. I did give it a little bit of haircut on the front here, as well as on the other side, just a little bit. But I still had a few spots that were sparse. So I ended up, you can see here, there's a few spots. I ended up taking my glue gun and just adding little dabs of hot glue just here and there, taking some of my moss and pressing that into place just to help fill it in just a little bit more. That's why I'm saying the amount of glue that I did have just wasn't quite enough. I did end up needing more, but I made do. So if you run into that problem like I have, you can easily fix that using some hot glue and just adding a little bit of moss. All right, so I decided I wanted to use some birch bark. So I've got just this little scrap piece. I'm actually using the back side of a piece of birch bark. It's brown in color, so I thought it would be perfect for a tree trunk. I did want to extend the length of my tree trunk a little bit, so I'm cutting two pieces because I needed to glue a piece on the one side and then flip it over and glue it onto the back side as well. So I'm again just using some hot glue and pressing that into place. There is going to be a little bit of a gap at the very bottom edge between the two pieces of bark, just due to the dimension of our ornament. So you're going to want to fill that in with a bit more hot glue, just so that there's contact and stability in between the two pieces. I hope that makes sense. So you can see here, I'm adding a little bit hot glue in between those layers. All right, that's all nice and dry. Now, I wasn't sure if I wanted to leave it as is, so I'm going to just quickly show you here what it looks like with some berries. I personally wasn't that crazy about the look, so I decided to remove those little berries off, and I am just going to just leave my little tree plain. But you can add some little colored bells. That would be cute too, or even some buttons, whatever you'd like to decorate it, but I wanted to leave mine plain. I had to use a pencil to recreate my hole, and then I'm going to create my hanger the same way that I did for our pressed flower and leaf ornament. And you can see though I'm using some green jute twine. I just picked this up at my local dollar store, but this is such a simple project. You can see it doesn't really stand out against this particular tree, but I think it would if it was against a flock tree. Or you could just add this as part of a garland for your mantle. I have this printable available for you to use in Canva. These are free images to use for personal use. So I'm going to have that link down for you in the video description, or feel free to ask me for that link. I can provide that for you in the comment section. I'm going to be trimming these down. So I decided to use an owl to demonstrate this project, but I will show you what the cardinal looks like as well. So you're going to need a hard surface and a craft knife, and you're going to want to trim around your bird shape. You can see it, you need a really nice sharp blade because we want to trim off all of the white part of this particular, for this particular ornament. I was inspired by a project that I had seen on Instagram, but the one that I had seen looked more autumnal. I wanted mine to look really Christmassy, so I'm going to show you how you can do that. All right, so I'm going to be trimming off any of the other extra little bits here. If you don't use Canva, then feel free to look at a site like the Graphics Fairy. I know she's got a lot of nice little owls, or anywhere that you like to gather some graphics. You can even cut them out of some books. I have some wood slices here. You can give them a paint of some gold metallic paint if you like, but I wanted to try out some watercolor. Now I've got some metallics here. I am using the Koi watercolor brand. This is an artist grade brand, but you can use any metallics that you like. I'm going to go with this gold color right here. I really like that look. So all I'm going to do is load up my brush with some of the gold watercolor paint, and I'm going to apply that all over a wood slice. Now you want to make sure that your wood slice is nice and smooth. That's really important. It's not going to look as good if the wood slice is quite rough. So if you need to go in and sand it a bit, go right ahead. These are just some wood slices that I picked up from my local dollar store, but they're actually readily available anywhere. You can even get them online on Amazon, and they're already drilled with some holes. So I added 2 coats of my metallic paint. I have allowed it to dry really well, and you can see how pretty that shimmer is. I really, really like it. This is what the red cardinal looks like against that nice shimmery gold, but I really, really, really like the owl. I think it's so beautiful. So I'm going to demonstrate this with the owl. You need a little piece of branch. This is just a branch that I got from a nature walk. I'm going to apply it using some hot glue. Now you can see that my branch has got like just a little spiky coming off of it. I like that look. It gives it some interest. So here's what it's going to look like with the owl. I love it. So that's why I'm going to demonstrate with the owl. But here is what it looks like with the red cardinal as well. So I wanted to try, like I said, to make it look Christmassy. And so I'm using that loose moss again. I thought it would give it the illusion of an evergreen branch. So I'm just going to glue some little bits here and there along the branch. So my little branch does have some golden yellow lichen on it, and I noticed that there was one piece that was actually going to get in my way of my owl. So I just took my knife and scraped that off, and now I'm going to test it out again, and the owl is sitting so much better. So you can go ahead and add some more moss as needed. Now I'm going to trim down my branch. I left it long because I wasn't sure how long I wanted it hanging off of each end. I also decided to add another little branch. I cut it on an angle so it will go right up against the branch that's already there. I added some hot glue, and I really like how that looks. Of course, get creative with whatever branch you decide to use for your project. So now I'm going to add the owl. I am using some foam tape to create a bit of dimension. You need it to be stable on the upper portion of our owl as the bottom portion is going to be glued to the branch. And the branch is dimensional, so you want to make sure that you use at least 2 layers of your foam tape. I did end up using 2 layers, so I tested it out here and discovered, yeah, it just needs 1 more layer of the foam tape. So I'm just going to be trimming my pieces down to fit on the back side of the owl. Just remember, you do not want to add your foam tape to the bottom of your owl. So this is how it looks. And I tested it out again, and that works really well. It really creates a really nice effect. So I'm just going to remove the backing off of our foam tape, and I'm going to press or add a little bit of hot glue to the branches before I press this little guy into place. You want to make sure your owl is lined up with the eye hook, and then you push that guy into place, and you can see how cute that looks. I think it's adorable. You could even add just a little bit of faux snow to the branch as well. That would be a pretty effect too. So I am going to also show you what it looks like for the red cardinal here in a bit. But again, just using some jute twine and just creating a hook. You can add a little bit of a bow to the top if you'd like to hide the eye hook. It didn't bother me. I loved how this looked. I think it's just absolutely gorgeous. I have so many more ornament inspiration videos for you to check out in this playlist right here. I want to thank you all so very much for joining me today. I truly appreciate it, and we will see you in the next one. Happy crafting. Bye.